What up, people? Coach V, New Breed Boxing. Amateur versus professional boxing. What are some of the main differences? Before we get into that, if you haven't already subscribed, please do so. Like, comment, share, and don't forget to hit the notification bell. Now, these are some of the top differences that I've noticed. If you see something I missed or left out, put it in the comments. There's a lot of them, but this is just the ones that I feel that stand out the most to me. So in amateur boxing, on the club show level, your coach can choose who you fight. You can either pre-match the fight, which means two coaches know each other already or they've been in contact. They feel like, you guys are, the two fighters that they have are a good match based on, their experience. And they come to the fight, hopefully both of them show up, you have a fight made. Otherwise, you show up the day of the fight, you see who's in your weight class, you go to the USA Boxing officials, they tell you who's available, you look at the books, you talk to the coaches talk to each other, and then they'll decide right then and there if you have a match or not. With pre-matching, it's the honor system. You're going on a verbal agreement. You don't know. A lot of times the other guy don't even show up, which in my opinion should show as a loss on your record. I think they need to modify the rules in amateur boxing, because you got people driving long distances, showing up to fights, and the other guy at the last minute pulls out. He's got an excuse like, oh, my car broke down or whatever. Meanwhile, he just had no intention on showing up. In professional boxing, it happens a lot less. It does happen, but it happens a lot less because you're contractually obligated, plus guys are getting paid. So they want to make sure they get that money. On a professional, on a professional level, you can pretty much choose who you want to fight in the beginning. You pay for slots on shows, and then, you find crash dummies in the beginning of your career. To be honest with you, most guys just find easy fights, build their record up, build their confidence up. And then once you get to the upper echelon, you will have some mandatories, but then the politics come into play. Who you're gonna be able to fight for a championship level bout. Again, that comes down to who your promoter is and how much money they got basically in the mix. On the amateur level, championship amateur level, when you get into a tournament, like I said, it's an elimination process. There's a bunch of guys in that weight class. They're gonna fight it out, and then there's gonna be one man standing. That's how it goes. And you have no control over who you fight in the tournament in the amateurs, again. So that's just how that goes. Another main difference in boxing, amateur and professional, is in amateur boxing, you have the point system, which they still use. They've tried to modify it, but they still basically use that, which I think is, it has its pros and cons to it. A punch that knocks somebody down counts the same as a jab. It's just that's how they score the amateur fighting system. It's who lands the most, who scores the most points, and that's pretty much how they determine the winner in amateur boxing. In professional boxing, they go based on effective aggression, ring generalship, and points scored. Those are the three determining factors. And somebody could be out pointing you, but if you land a devastating shot and you hurt them bad, but you don't knock them out, you can balance the round out or even turn it around. There's a lot more room for manipulation, I feel, in the pro scoring system. That's probably by design. They kind of want to keep boxing in the Stone Age, I feel. Just because it just leaves room to to keep that gray area as a backup option in case your guy doesn't look too good, and he can still pull off the win as long as he finishes on his feet. So that's another big difference in between amateur and professional boxing. Another one is in amateur boxing, in the entry level, you fight in shorter rounds, 2-minute rounds in the beginning. Pro boxing, straight up 3-minute rounds. So it's a different way of training. You know what I mean? And then also the duration of the fight. Amateur boxing starts out at 3 rounds. Professional boxing starts out at 4 rounds and goes all the way up to 12. 10 and 12 rounds in the championship level. So it's a whole different way of that. Also factors in, to a different way of training. When you're training for the amateurs, it's like a sprint. It's like a drag race. You're supposed to come out the gate, like I always say, 2 guns blazing, like a buzzsaw, both hands just going to work from start to finish. There's not too much of a feeling out process. And if you spend too much time feeling somebody out in amateur boxing, you're going to lose, because it's really more about who's bringing the action. As opposed to professional boxing, it could be either way. You know, Mike Tyson came out with the drag race theory, you know, when he first started his career, and he carried that on even to the, you know, to the upper echelon in a lot of his fights as well. So, you know, that's one way. Then you got like the Mayweather approach, where you know, you're just gonna basically steal all the rounds, and you're just trying to rack up points and not exchange, not take too many chances, and just stay ahead on points. So some guys like to be more like sprinters, some guys like to be more like marathon runners, basically. So there's a little bit more room for variety, basically. Another thing I'd say is, you know, the gloves. That's a big difference. Even though they're only a couple ounces smaller than the amateurs, you know, amateur boxing, I think 152 and up use 12 ounce, and then you know, under 152 you use 10 ounce gloves. As opposed to professional boxing, depends on where you're at, they can use 8 ounce gloves. You know, and there's a lot of variables. It depends, because things can change from one state or one commission to the next too. But you know, those smaller gloves do make a big difference. When you have no headgear and smaller gloves, the damage factor, and then the longer rounds, the damage factor in professional boxing goes up exponentially. That's another thing. You know, I hate headgear, but it does prevent certain cuts and stuff like that, superficial damage. Does nothing to protect your brain from brain damage, though. That I will have to confirm, because I can tell you that, yeah, I've been hit with and without headgear, and the only difference is getting hit without headgear, it stings a little bit more, but you can see a lot better too, and you do get hit less, I feel, because it's just a smaller target. And then the actual training is completely different, I feel. I mean, yeah, you got the same platform, the same fundamental platform, footwork, punches, combinations, head movement, offense, defense, tactics, and strategy. The tactics and strategy, though, I feel are a lot different. And, you know, in pro boxing, you know, there's a lot of stuff that, you know, you're not going to see in the amateurs. You know what I mean? And the guys are a lot more sophisticated in their level of professionalism, and also grimy. Just the griminess is at a whole higher level. You know, you got guys over there just getting away with stuff. I mean, especially like if a guy's a promoted fighter, he could be pulling dirty foul tactics on you the whole night and getting away with it because his promoters got everybody in the pocket. So, you know, in the amateur level, I feel like, you know, there's pros and cons to both. I mean, obviously, the biggest pro in pro boxing is you get paid, and you can get paid a lot of money. Although I feel like on the lower level of boxing, those guys don't get paid enough. That's just my personal opinion. But all in all, yeah, they're the same sport, but they're just it's a different way of moving. It's like the difference between drag racing and Formula One. You know what I'm saying? It's a whole different level, but it is you know, one leads into the next. You know, and I do feel like, you know, if you have plans on turning professional, you don't want to spend too much time in the amateurs, because that's like a lot of Cuban Olympians are amazing amateurs, and because of the politics, they can't get, you know, out of the country and turn pro quick enough. So by the time they come over here, they basically already burned themselves out in the amateurs. You know, you don't have to have 500 amateur fights before you turn pro. Everybody's different. Everybody learns at different levels. So that's just something that's up to your coach, and then also, you know, use your own discretion, you know, as you gain experience. But that's a whole nother subject. But those are the main differences between amateur and professional boxing. If you see some other differences that I didn't mention, put them in the comments. Those are just the ones that I feel are the most relevant and the most prevalent, that stand out to me the most. There's some things to be aware of if you're looking to, you know, making that transition eventually from amateur to professional boxing. If you found this informative, like, subscribe, comment below. Also, DM me at coach.v_. We'll be doing consultations in the very near future, and we'll also have some downloadable content available. So the next time we up out of here, Au.